I feel like with the way things have changed since the hurricane and the direction that we're going, while a lot of things stays the same, a lot of things change. And getting a clear mission and vision. And I know in the previous strategic plan there was a proposed one. I'm not sure how far that got. Because if you look at it, it's proposed mission and proposed vision. Clear timelines for our strategy, so we all know what direction we're going to go, how we're going to measure it, how we're going to communicate, that type of thing. We just want to help us focus on specific things now that we've kind of started shuffling things and gotten some of the heavy lifting, if you will, done with permitting and starting to get debris removal from the initial impact of the storm. The dust is settled. Now where are we going to go? What's our path forward? And so we reached out to Angela, and we're excited that she's here to kind of lead. We're not sure that it'll take the whole 3 hours, but we appreciate your cooperation as we move into this next phase of how I manage coming up on a year now. We kind of had, I kind of guided the ship for the year. Now you need to make sure you're guiding the ship for the next, 5, 10, 15 years.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
A question for Andy. Given you've got a lot of history, and you and Frankie both have a lot of history of municipal governance. We had a strategic plan prior to when Councilor Ellers and I came on to council, and we never heard it referenced in any capacity. I don't think I've ever seen it. In your experience, and as we move forward, how do you plan to utilize the strategic plan, and how will we know that this won't just go on a shelf somewhere? A, and B, I have another question about, maybe this is a good question for the moderator. We're going through, I see John McLean here from the LPA. We're doing a heavy lift as we redo our comprehensive plan right now. We do that every 10 years, and that's a kind of a directional footprint for where the island is headed. How does this differ? What are the similarities? Is there duplication? Just curious on those two issues. You first, Andy, if you would.
Yeah, it took a little while for me to obviously get my feet on the ground and figure out we had a strategic plan. Of course, it was 2017, I believe. So obviously you should review these every, 3 to 5 years for sure. If you prepare it properly and you use it properly, it helps with budgeting, it helps with forecasting, it helps with the direction. You come back, it's a living, breathing document with my experience, and it can change from year to year. There could be something that happened, a hurricane happened. Now you have to change your strategic plan because now you refocus. Maybe you were about to build a new park. We were about to build a new park. Well, that had to change because now we had to focus on getting the old town hall down. So things change. You should review this. This should be something the town manager uses daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. There should be quarterly reviews. There should be goals set with our budgeting, performance measures put in place, everything tying to the strategic plan. It's the roadmap for the whole organization. LPA fits into part of it. That's one part of it. That doesn't help with stormwater. That doesn't help with capital improvement projects, whether we build or buy a town hall, whether we build or improve a park. Those things are separate. They're usually not in the LPA, in that wheelhouse, if you will. I'll let you add.
Angela, come up and introduce yourself. I should probably have you do that at the beginning. But
Yeah. So good morning, Angela Christ. I am the director for the Florida Institute of Government at the University of South Florida. It is a pleasure to be here. And Andy said it very eloquently. Your comprehensive plan is just one piece of a strategic plan. And we're going to talk a little bit later about really when you look at the differences between operational and strategic planning. I know there was a comment made about, not really done it this way, or that's not my understanding of strategic planning. We use a very different process, and we've done these all over the state. It's a participatory method. And what that means is we're engaging all the key stakeholders. So whether that be businesses, residents, employees, but it's really the first kind of part of our process is really just kind of collecting data and getting a baseline for where you are. And that data comes from all of those, whether it's resident surveys or employee surveys, and then taking that information and working with all of you to really create those goals, those goal statements, those objectives, and those action items. we see it exactly as Andy said, it's a living, breathing document. A lot of people think a strategic plan is just that's the roadmap and that's all you follow. But when you work in government, it cannot be that, at least in our professional opinion. It must be fluid. It must be flexible. When there are unfunded mandates that come down, when there's a Cat 5 hurricane, you have no control over those, but yet you have to respond to them. And so when you get to the implementation stage of the process, when you are having meetings, your agenda items should be referencing a strategic goal. Your budget decisions should be made based on your vision of your strategic plan. And so it's a very unique process. It's very different. It is not what I would consider a kind of private sector model. It is really a government sector model. And so those are kind of the differences in what we're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. So am I good to go? Or
Yeah, take it away.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. Okay. So I just want to tell you very briefly, just a little bit about the Institute and the school, just so you know who we are. So we're actually part of the School of Public Affairs. So we have the Masters of Public Administration and the Masters of Urban and Regional Planning within my school. So we have a lot of resources. We've been around, we were created, the Institute, by the legislature. So we serve the entire state of Florida. I serve mostly the central and the southwest part. My partners at FAU kind of do Broward, Miami, kind of that area. And then Florida State really does the whole top half. So we have a lot of resources. We have affiliates across the state. So I just wanted to share that with you so you know a little bit about us. Okay, let's talk about today's agenda. I need you to take the journey with me today. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions, and that's okay. I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. But this is not about me talking. This is about you participating today. So I need you to put your thinking caps on. So we're going to do a little individual activity, and it's around milestones and successes. There'll be a brief kind of status update on current work plan activities that you have going on. We will take a break. It doesn't mean it's going to be exactly at 10:05. We may be able to move into the group discussion, but we will have a break at some point. We will have a group discussion on the treasures. There will then be a group activity on beginning to develop the vision. I'll talk a little bit about the keys to strategic decision making. What I had just mentioned a second ago, I have some slides that will kind of help you, I think, understand it a little better. We'll have an opportunity for you to address any thing that we have not covered up at that point. So if there's anything during the open discussion that you'd like to bring up, that would be your opportunity as an elected official. We will also have time for public comment and then wrap up. Does that sound good to everyone? Okay, let's dive in. So you should each have a little packet of sticky notes at your seat. So I want you to just individually, I want you to write down only one item per sticky note. So there should be, it's sticky. It's sticky.
That's sticky.
It's sticky.
I was just being a smart aleck. I'm like, I got a big piece
Oh,
of paper. Right?
that's okay. So the question you're answering is, what are the people and events, whether in the town, the surrounding area, or the world at large, that had made a difference in the history and successes of Fort Myers Beach? You can only put one per sticky note. And if you know the approximate time frame, please put that on there. So, you know. And one per sticky note.
We all know the obvious one.
Okay, you're going back now. Milestones and successes before the last hurricane.
And we can only do one?
No, you can do as many. It should be what comes to your mind.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's one per sticky note.
Oh, got it.
Well, if you have a big piece of paper, you may write 2 on
Yeah,
the sticky.
still have to cut it in half though.
If you have space, just don't cut it. No, don't cut it in half because I need it stuck somewhere.
Got it?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just about to do the same. Great minds think. That's right.
Music from Jeopardy. Yes, it's a dead air. Dead air.
This moment of silence brought to you by the Fort Myers Beach Public Library.
Yeah, right.
Well, we normally do.
Oh, the line, really?
I don't know.
Toto.
That's right.
The music silence of Andy Hyatt, bringing you Toto.
So what do you want done with these?
When
them to
you
you?
are done, I would like to
Okay.
have one done.
What if you can't read our writing?
Can't read my writing.
There must be here.
A long time.
I know. So I'm glad there's one. Angela.
Angela. There's 2 on there.
Yeah.
That's good with direction.
I know, I've seen your past report cards.
Okay, here's a bunch.
Interesting question.
We're gonna need more sticky pads. They don't seem like they're very full.
You should be able to see like a
Do you want me to go grab some more? Just in
Yeah.
case?
This Scott turning in a book. Big writer.
I went to the bottom.
No, you're the base.
Right.
It's important. It's always how you look at it.
Exactly.
You're really a fun girl.
I know, as I said, I'm setting the framework here, folks.
Thank you.
I didn't want to use mine.
Would you write one thing per piece of paper?
Yeah.
Are your
Page
markers
2.
scented?
Yes.
Cool. That's a good facilitator.
And they don't bleed through.
It's funny when you would bring scented markers, people would put them, and then you'd see the markings on their nose. Ooh, that was a good one.
High school, it was airplane glue.
Ah,
I remember handing out the sheets for tests.
oh,
Come off the.
the mimeograph or
The mimeograph.
Yes.
Man, look at you, show off.
That's because I'm old.
We all know what you're talking about.
Vintage.
Yeah, I read a lot.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that it?
Remember, you used to, it was like special when you got to go to the office and like
Oh, I know.
make them.
Yeah.
And then you sit there and
And you
smell it.
Okay, any others that I missed?
I think you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Is that
those.
everybody? Do I have everyone's? Okay, great. Okay, so let's walk through these together, and then I'm gonna ask where these go.
I think you may want to be on the mic.
Yeah.
Oh, do I need?
Yeah, so folks can hear you.
Pretty.
We need a wireless
Well, no,
mic.
it's not loud, it's so the public can hear.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry. Okay, so let's start. Can you guys see though? Because I need to have it next to me. Okay, let's just move it here. Okay, so we have, can I stand on this side? It's
No,
very-
You're gonna have to,
you-
maybe put it on,
Put the microphone.
can you put it in front of Frankie?
You can only get it so close.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. Thanks.
We need a wireless
We'll
mic.
put Frankie in the
I,
corner.
I
We need a
wireless.
walk around mic. We
Do
used
you have a
to
wireless mic, Jacob?
It's okay. I'm good.
We
I
don't
can
have a
do this.
wireless mic.
I can do, is that better?
Maybe a little clip on it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Much
no
better,
problem.
Frankie.
No worries. It's all good. Okay. So we have shrimpers and industry in the 40s. Let's see, town and corporation, 1995. So someone had towns founders. So was this referring to the 40s or the incorporation in 95?
Corporation.
Okay. So we have two of those. Doesn't want to stick. Okay. Hurricane Charlie, I put here. This was in 2000. Red Tide 28.
Was it
2004.
2004?
Yeah,
Oh, it just says 2000s. Okay.
2000s, yeah.
Okay. Hold.
I didn't know. Any specific.
I didn't put in.
Okay. Then let's see. Obviously, the pandemic in 2020. I'm not sure. New Sky something 1979. What's that?
Bridge, the bridge.
Okay. Beach school all decades, and then I don't have no clue what that says.
That's Jim's writing.
First,
Probably mine.
oh, first council in the 90s. That's you. That you
That's-
said that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay, perfect. All right, town and corporation. So we have all these three. This is leaders of the town successfully fought to make Fort Myers Beach a town. So that's kind of all this incorporation. This is the leaders who, I can't read your writing. Whose is this?
It's the leaders who had the foresight to preserve and create the beach access points all along the beach, which
Okay.
kind of democratized the beach for everybody on Fort Myers Beach.
Okay. That is a huge point. Okay.
And
I
then
need
there's,
to turn your microphone, just, I know
Oh.
we're kind of being a pain, but
It's
just
okay.
make sure they can hear you.
and then there's
Sorry.
a second one on that one.
Okay.
It's similar theme. It's those leaders, and some of them have names, some of them don't, who thought to preserve Bowditch Park, Lynn Hall Park, Crescent Park, Newton Park, and Matanzas Pass, kind of our nature preserves for our island. They had the foresight to preserve those lands.
Okay. And when did this occur?
Oh, it's various dates throughout our history. Each park has its own story.
So 40s. And then you weren't incorporated until 1995, right?
Correct.
Okay. So let's see what else we have. COVID. Town's founders, Dan Hughes, who wrote that?
One of the founders. He was one of the founders of the town.
Okay, perfect. Put this here. Okay. All right, then let's see. So now we have 95. The next thing I see is 2004. Is that correct?
Probably.
Well, I'm sure some of the other stuff filled in there that the vice mayor was referring to kind of fell in to that time frame between 95 and 2004.
Okay.
Mound House, I put Mound House. When was that?
It was.
Yes, I had a couple that I wasn't sure where they went. Mound House Development, that was one of them.
That was after 95. I'm pretty sure when the town bought it. I don't remember the exact dates. But it was after 95.
Before 2004?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably 96, 97.
You realize we had to know all specific dates today, though.
There's a reason for
Yeah.
it. Yeah, there's a reason for it. Okay, so then I have, I'm not sure about these two. Well, enhanced improvement of fire department and EMS. I think Karen, you wrote that. When did that occur?
You know, we bought here in 2016, so it was before
Got it.
that.
Can't hear you.
We bought, we bought here in 2016, so I know it was all in place before that, but I don't remember exactly what those dates were. It probably was, early 2000, I'm
Okay.
thinking.
Okay. Then we have Margaritaville, 2014 to 2022.
It was a long planning session.
We actually have COVID. So COVID came, 2020? And then now we're into new council election, new town manager, and new legal counsel. So that was 2022 through 2023. And then interestingly enough, what I found is that these are all what I would call kind of milestones, things that actually happen that have gotten you to where you are. But these down here, nonprofit participation in town activities, the Chamber of Commerce, the citizens, the previous councils, those are all the people that have made all these things happen. I'm sorry, I put sand sculpting. Where did that go?
That's just one of our marquee events
Yeah,
that,
it's a big event.
Is it,
so it stopped in 2019. So it was a huge, huge event. Now we're bringing it back this year.
okay.
So it's the US Championships.
There was another one too. I should put in Little League. I'm not sure when they started here
I don't know where it went.
at Bay Oaks.
Since the school's been around.
Yeah, since the school. So it would go up with the school.
Okay, so. Look at the timeline. And what do you see? If you can see it.
A lot of Post-it notes.
Yes.
Yeah, big gaps.
Gaps, okay. What else?
I think the biggest gap is obviously the first one, from the 40s to 95. And then a lot of stuff between 95 and 2004 is what you were talking about, the sand sculpting, all the events that happened throughout the island, Shrimp Fest, things like that are all kind of in that time frame.
4th of July parade.
Yeah, all of those
all
things, but
Half of that is when they've been up here,
Mhm.
when they've been part of this process.
Mhm.
2019.
Well, and I think a lot of the reason, this is my speculation, but between the 95 and the 2004, many of us weren't here then.
Yeah.
You know the history, but you don't necessarily know the exact dates of the
Mhm.
history from the time that, like the Mount House, for example, probably should know the exact date, but
Yeah.
I don't think any of us know the exact date.
No, I don't think you need to know the exact date. That wasn't the purpose of the exercise. The purpose was to say, where's the vision been along the way? You guys have responded to what? So you were moving along.
We've just
Something major.
been reactive since '04. I mean, it's Charlie wiped out a great portion
Mhm.
of our downtown area, and it took Margaritaville to bring that back 18 years later. And we've had Irma, which was very impactful. It missed us, but then we had red tide, then we had COVID, and then we had the hurricane. I mean, everything's just been all that thrown at us, and we keep surviving all the punches, but it's just been reaction, and we need to, be, set us up so we're proactive and or respond to the whatever next punch is coming. So
Absolutely. So the strategic planning process is about being that visionary. You as leaders have the opportunity to do that and to make sure that in the next 10 years, there isn't gaps, that you're prepared for that. And that's what the strategic plan is about. So you have to recognize where you came from and what the founders and why. But at the same time, now you have a huge opportunity to set the vision for where you want the town to go. whether that is being prepared for another major hurricane, that's only one piece of it. Yes?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, let's move on. So you guys have done a lot. Oh. My thing's not working. Can you just, you can just forward the slide, it's fine.
Heard that before.
Okay. I am going to turn it over to Andy if you want to talk about some of the current activities you guys are doing.
Obviously, as we all know, since I got here about a year ago, beach renourishment started. Prior to that, we just started the stormwater tier 1 projects. They're going. Been working on the town facilities. You know, one thing that we focused on right when I got here was removing the old town hall. That happened in June, I believe, Mayor, if that's right. When in June, and then the town facilities for getting these trailers put in place, and of course, since September 2022, Hurricane Ian recovery began and has continued. Worked with the ball, getting the Little League field. Worked with getting the Bay Oaks Community Center back up and running, hiring staff, moving staff around, all that's part of a plan. And now as we focus going forward, we need to continue the planning. Just because we get people put in right places, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't always anticipate the next thing. Scott hit right on it pretty good earlier, about how we need to prepare ourselves. It's one thing I continually do is always anticipate that somebody could decide to leave or any number of things can happen. So we always need to be prepared for replacing staff, for replacing equipment, for replacing ball fields, for replacing water lines, sewer line, that type of thing. So we've got to, our plan, our activities are day-to-day type things. They're big projects, but they also are something that create an opportunity for us going into the next several years. The beach obviously is something that requires 100% of our attention constantly. There's always things happening out there. The ball field, with grass and lighting and things of that nature. The lighting project that we have going on, those activities, we continue to do these boots on the ground type things. And some of this is reactive. It's all right, what happened to the beach? All right, we got to do this. What happened to the ball field? We got to do this. You started planning prior to me getting here to redo this part. Well, then the hurricane happened. You didn't plan for that. So not that you could, obviously, but we are planning for emergencies. We are doing more meetings with our comprehensive emergency management plan. But all those things fit into this umbrella. So it's just more and more of the guidance and the vision that you want to share with me and having been here a lot longer than me and having various experiences as we continue together, hopefully into the next several years to continue to set the standard, set the bar. One thing I told staff, and I mentioned this a few of you possibly, that I want other towns and municipalities in a post-hurricane situation to come to us and say, how did you do it? How did Fort Myers Beach get back? I've been here a year, so it's been 19 months since the hurricane. And if we could take an aerial shot, a 30,000 foot view or 10,000 foot view, this is where we were on September 29th. And here's where we are on April 29th. The 29th, not, I guess it's coincidental that it's the 29th, but I think you understand. I mean, you have moved the bar. We have created a different expectation here just by you being here. That changed how the town thought, and we do have a different mindset. We talk about it individually with each one of you every week. We talk about the mindset, and not necessarily those words, but what are we doing? What's happening? So we want to, if something were to happen to me and the next person comes in, we don't want it to be since 2017 when that person dusts this off and says, oh, what are we going to do? It's there. Where's the first place that a manager should look when he comes to a town? The budget and the strategic plan, and not necessarily in that order, because this budget comes under this. So those are the things we're doing. Joe, and the way that the budgeting process is done now, and just the transparency that creates. And this is a transparent function that we're doing. That type of government is what I believe in, and you do too, because that's why we're all sitting here together. You felt like that was the direction we need to go. We added the attorneys, and just and the way the staff and the way we go about our business, and it's all part of the plan, the work plan, which is a part of the strategic plan.
You said something very interesting there that kind of, and I think it goes kind of along with what you said, Scott, is, the town, I think, has learned since 95 how to operate as a town. And since the storm, it's been kind of accelerated as to, since you and I have been on the council, we've all kind of tried to work to get it more transparent, to make it so that you do have a roadmap. Because I saw how difficult it was for you and Chris, and I know we all did. And then when you came in to actually you had nothing to really go off of.
Right.
So you had to learn from the five of us, so to speak, to like, where's this? How does this work? How was the budget run? I remember right after it was one of the first things Chris said to me was, how do you pay your employees? There's nothing in place as to who, there's no pay scale. How does this work? So it was trying to redo all these processes. And I think that's part of the evolution of the town and learning how to operate as a municipality. So this is going to be very interesting to see how it goes forward, to be proactive, to be able to head things off. Should something happen or something change, we're not going to be up here forever. You're not going to be in that seat forever. So the next person needs to be able to understand where we started and where we're trying to get to.
I think one thing, I obviously draw from my experiences with emergency preparedness. There are certain things you can't prepare for. You can anticipate and you say, okay, that can happen. But as you get as prepared as you can and watch how staff and you react, just in that one piece. But yes, it's the whole dynamic. It's having the purchasing policy in place. It's having hiring policies in place. It's having our employee handbook in place. It's having all those things. So if something were to happen, we all decided one day we've had enough, we're retired, we're going somewhere else. And then the next group comes in, they can plug and play. And then we left it better than we found it. And I know each one of you feel that way. And I know I do. I've always been taught, leave it better than you found it. And I think that's what we're doing. I think we see that this group, we have, and I say it in public, I'd say it in private, I'd say it anywhere. We have a good relationship. That's a rarity sometimes in government, because this person thinks that they're bigger than the whole. Well, this person thinks the other way. I'm a small slice of the whole. So I think this is where your expertise and your experience, and Dan did hit on it exactly. I was leaning on you for the next day, and the next day. It was just a day at a time. This more gives us a bigger roadmap, a year at a time. How are we going to function this next year, and hopefully the next year? And it helps Joe and helps staff as we start to prepare the budget and plug things in. Oh, we want to do more of this. We want to prepare this. What do we need to purchase? How many employees do we need to hire? Do we need to cut back? Do we need to do? There's just everything kind of plays off of this document. It really is the focal point of how all of us should operate.
It's being more proactive instead of reactive.
Correct.
And I think that's fair, but I think we have to design it in a way that Scott did a nice summation. I mean, literally since Dan and I have been here, and you throw out the word red tide, it sounds like some generic term. It was a cataclysmic event for Fort Myers Beach. It literally shut down our island for months. And then you add COVID onto that, then you add Ian onto that. So whatever plan we put forth has to be able to absorb those kind of blows. And that has to be, the plan has to be designed to, you just think about just how different each one of those three events were, but they were each, so impactful to the island in an adverse way that we had to absorb those blows and then move forward. Fortunately, we have a very resilient island, but I think the plan, I think all your points are well taken, Andy, but I just think it has to be designed to be able to absorb the blow of any type of natural or man-made disaster that may come our way, because we've certainly seen it, and it's been quite dramatic the last 4 or 5 years.
I think, and Joe will probably he will love this, but it's also with what do you do with your fund balances? What do you do for that rainy day? What are you preparing for financially? We need to put policies in place and a procedure or an ordinance in place that says, all right, we're going to put 25% of our budget away, a minimum of. I've been places we actually had an ordinance. It was a minimum of 25%. And then we tried to increase it every year. We didn't have but of course you also got to be mindful that you just don't put all that money in the bank. You have to do projects too. I mean, you're supposed to spend that money back into the community, but you also need to prepare for what none of us can even sit here to think about. And we can think about a lot of things that we've experienced and continue to list them off, but you just got to be prepared for the unexpected and the unexpected, and having that, fund balances to me are a key to future growth, if you will, to use that term, or just being able to react and withstand a red tide, or be able to withstand a hurricane, be able to stand up and make those, continue to pay staff, continue to do things like that. But that, again, all part of a global plan.
And I was just going to comment real quick and just say, I think this is the reason we started the way we started today is because it's a culture shift. In my professional opinion, it's very hard because you have been, what I would say, so in the reactive mode of really survival and responding, that it's a culture shift to kind of think of where you want to be, right? You're still trying to take down buildings that were affected by a hurricane and rebuild. But visioning is the foundation, the key to strategic planning. So part of this is shifting your mindset. And I think Andy said it great, is there's a lot more to it than just the comprehensive plan or absolutely responding to red tide. There's other things that go into it. So you guys have to come up here to this kind of 100,000-foot level, even though I know it's so hard because you're down here right now. But that's what we're trying to do, is kind of set that tone up here. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, and I know we talked about, you had mentioned we should be looking at this every 3 to 5 years. Reality is we should be looking at it quarterly, because
Yes.
everything we do, and once we get this in place, we have to go back and look at performance appraisals, goal setting, job descriptions. Where do they all fall in accordance with the strategic plan, and what do we want to get done? Who are we hiring for? What is the growth of our departments going to be? So it is the absolute baseline of everything we do, and it should be used as such. I mean, it should always be in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in our process, the implementation plan is quarterly. It's quarterly updates. I think the overall plan needs to be looked at every 3 to 5 years, but there should be status reports given at a minimum on a quarterly basis. So other things, any other thing you want to share about the work plan? Okay.
I have a thought in terms, and I assume this will be built into your philosophy, but we've talked about some of the structural things that have been done as we respond to Ian and as the town gets a governance plan together. But we also have some challenges on the island as well, that in terms of quality of life challenges, I'll just use, for example, traffic congestion.
Yep.
It's probably one of the most impactful things in terms of quality of life on this island. There's so many variables to it. I get tired when people say there's nothing we can do about it. We can't solve it with one solution, but there are a litany of things we can do to help address it. And I think that, I assume we're going to be talking about that today, because we'll want to shape our plan and metric our success based on how we address issues like traffic congestion.
Yeah, so I don't know that we will get to that specifically today. That is way further in the process. Today, it's really about the vision and the next 2 exercises. The last exercise, that's a group activity, is really around that vision setting. You really need to know who you want to be and where you want to go. You have to answer that question first before we could ever get into those details. And so I don't know that you have that again yet, because you've been such in survival mode. You don't have that vision yet of where you want to go. At least I haven't seen it. You may have it in your head, but it hasn't been articulated.
Okay.
So I think we have to get there first. And part of what we're doing today is trying to get there.
But that will be eventually part of the
Oh,
plan, correct?
absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
Very
yes,
good.
yes, yes, yes.
All right.
You could have a strategic, usually we have strategic themes that kind of come out of all of the data. One could be quality of life. One could be communications. One could be economic development. I mean, there's a lot of different strategic themes that are broader. So yes, absolutely, that all pulls through it. But we are starting, remember I'm trying to get you up here. That's where we're starting, really high up. Okay, let's move on. This is just gonna be a, I'm gonna flip chart this. But so again, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm not used to, I told you I like to walk around. I'm Italian. We talk with our hands and we move. So it's like, it's hard for me to stand here. That's okay. So this is what I want to talk about. So again, remember when I was talking about the visioning and kind of where you want to go, we have to recognize where you came from, those milestones and successes, which we did over here, your history. Talked about kind of your current projects that you have going on, but now we need to say, what are those things about Fort Myers Beach that as you move forward in this process should remain and not change? This is a hard question. So, and this is group participation. So whenever you want to speak, you speak, and I'm going to flip chart it, but just think about it for a second. What are those things that should remain and not change for Fort Myers Beach?
So you just want us to throw things out?
I do.
Well, I'll start, I guess. And I think obviously the sense of community is very important. You know, when I say that, I mean the beach school, the vibrant, you know, getting too far one way on a spectrum to me is not something that I'm a big fan of. You know, you have to keep that equality, I guess, if you will, between business residents and visitors in order to keep the island what it's always been. And it's vibrant, it's eclectic, it's unique, it's fun. So keeping that community feeling is probably the number one thing for me.
I think the water and the areas around the island that are protected, stay protected, preserves the parks,
The beaches.
the beaches. Water quality, in fact, it should probably be improved, but that's not us.
That's another meeting.
That's
Right.
another meeting.
You know, I think with the sense of community, there also has to be a balance with tourism. And sometimes it's a push-pull scenario, but I think we have to come to the reality that we are the number one tourist spot. And I think that in Lee County and probably within the top 3 of the entire state. So I think we have to find that balance and be at peace with it.
I think it's even more than that. I think if you look at our community, it's almost like a table with 4 legs. One leg is the residents, one is the business, one is the snowbirds, and one is the tourists.
Mhm.
And you can't, that balance needs to be there. It can't be all about tourism. It can't be all about the residents. There has to be a fine balance between the 4 of them, because
Okay,
most
what was the other 2? I'm sorry. What was the other 2? I got
residents, tourism,
Business.
businesses,
Uh-huh.
and
snowbirds.
snowbirds.
Snowbird.
Seasonal residents.
Seasonal residents.
Yeah.
Because what happens is usually a tourist turns into a snowbird that turns into a resident. It's usually
That's the path.
and they buy a hotel.
Residents.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, because most people come here as a tourist and then they kind of evolve into a seasonal resident and eventually they end up becoming a resident. And that seems to be how it's always been, at least as long as I've been paying attention. So I think it's kind of, to Scott's point, it is you lose one of those and it takes away that whole sense of community.
So question.
Ah,
I have a question. Is that a treasure or is that part of your vision?
I think it's both.
Yeah, it's both. It's to preserve that.
It's preserved. Yeah. I think it's a
You just have,
preservation.
when you're doing planning, you have to realize that it's not just, it's not just about the businesses. It's not just about the tourists. It's not just about, the residents. It's a combination of the 4, and there has to be a balance there.
Vice Mayor?
Well,
Deep thought.
thing that comes to mind for me is difficult to put on a piece of paper. In fact, it's sort of crude, but I mean, you could be, I don't know how else to describe it. You could be sitting at a bar in Fort Myers Beach, and on your left, you could have a retired steel worker, and on the right, you could have a multimillionaire venture capitalist, both wearing the same T-shirt. Nobody cares what kind of car you drive. There's a sort of an egalitarian feel about this island where you don't have to put on airs and you can be yourself and do your own thing, and that's what creates the vibe. And how do you characterize that in a plan? I don't know, but certainly the wide variety of socioeconomic folks we have here creates a very interesting place to live.
Yeah, I think, the residents, I think the reason the residents like to live here is because they feel like they're on vacation. Even though you're working, you still feel like you're on vacation because you're never more than a half a mile away from the beach. You're never more than a mile or two away from something to go out to have dinner or meet with your friends or meet new people. So that all kind of ties into everything that's up there. But the vibe, I guess, a good word. to
So
use.
would you say inclusive and welcoming?
That's a very
Yeah,
good way to put it.
Very much so.
John?
I think that's pretty much captured I'm more of a feelings person, and that's the feel I got when I used to come here and vacation, and then spend a time during COVID down here to figure out if this is where I wanted to spend my time. And the community that was so inclusive and welcoming made me want to stay and be a part of it.
Okay, so I think what we're hearing, sense of community, inclusive and welcoming. I want to talk a little, preserving obviously parks and beaches. So, but I want to talk about this last one a little bit and how we define it a little bit better, because I think what you're saying is it's almost when you think of the circle of life, right? That's kind of what this is what I'm hearing you say. This is kind of a circle of engagement almost. And so what specifically is it? Is it making sure that the plan addresses all of these, or is it making sure that you continue to provide the opportunities for a person who comes in as a visitor to then, if they come in as a tourist, then they become a seasonal resident and then they, permanently live here. So I think, what's the treasure of this? Is it that you provide the
I
opportunity?
think it's the balance of the four. It's the balance, because when the tourists leave, you are relying on your residents to support the businesses. So it to me, the word balance comes to mind, because you
Okay.
have to have the balance of all four of those
Okay.
in order to survive as a community. Otherwise, if you get too far one way or the other, you just become a tourist town, or you just become a town that nobody wants to come and visit. And I don't think the vision is that we want to stray far away from what it's been all along. And it's been those four things.
Yeah, right now, just so you know, that the businesses, that's where we're hurting the goods, and that's, I don't know how long it's going to take. That's probably our biggest issue right now. We're still getting tourists. They're not staying as long.
Mhm.
They're
Not staying here.
they're not staying here. But they're still coming down here for the day, checking things out. But the lack of just I mean, we just got a gas station 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
So we still don't have a liquor store. We still don't have a doctor. We still don't have just basic stuff. And I think that's creating what Jim had mentioned about the traffic. I mean, people are making more touches every day going off the island. And in turn, they're spending their money elsewhere.
Mhm.
So I think our short-term plan, whatever that is, needs to focus on getting that balance. Because right now, there is the, the tiki boat tour and stuff that's helping tourism, but it's not helping the seasonal residents nor the residents, because we just don't have enough goods and services on the island right now.
I think we've lost a lot of residents too.
Yeah.
Since the hurricane. I
Mhm.
mean, I have no idea what the numbers are right now, but I would say we've lost at least 20% of people that just can't afford or don't
Mhm.
want to, or, stayed or whatever, and it's just too hard.
Mhm.
So
And
Uh,
I think a word that comes to mind, based on like what you guys are saying, is sustainability. How in
Mhm.
your vision do you use that sustainability? So if you do have a catastrophic event like we
Yeah.
had, how do you envision that going forward to make it viable for businesses to come back?
Right.
You know, we're dealing with a lot of cost of goods and things like that. How do you build that sustainability into those four things so that as it goes forward, there's a path in place for people to be able to still come back, that want to come back? And I think part of the issue that Scott alluded to is, you know, we lost a lot of our buildings. So people are temporarily here. Now, when you start building things back, that cost is going to be so far out of reach for a lot of the smaller businesses that we had before to be able to come back and rent space. How do you make that sustainable into the future? How do you make it cost effective? Is there something that the municipality can do to put in place policy wise to ensure that there's always going to be a place for people that fit within those four legs, if you will?
And that is all part of visioning.
Yeah, and particularly essential businesses. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
we've talked, we've given some examples, but you can't, with the exception of Margaritaville, and I'm sure it's a wonderful place to get your hair cut, but that's probably not the most practical place for residents to get their hair cut. And there's no place to get a haircut. You can't, there's no dentist on the island. I mean, these are the essential services that make quality of place, quality of life critical for our residents. And I think the lack of retail outlets that are open, so that could be incubators for our small businesses, that's a huge challenge. And I think the town could play a role in providing incentives for those to get either reopened or rebuilt.
Part of the key, you know, that we have a chamber of commerce, but you look at the economic development aspect of the residents, tourism, seasonal residents, businesses, the leakage. Scott mentioned it, but actually the leakage, the money is going somewhere else that used to stay here. And we've got to identify methods and ways to get the businesses back open, the boutique hotels, those type of things back open. I know, part of what we don't have a lot of control over is the pier. How's that happen? Our parks, but what we can control. But that economic development engine that focuses on those four legs is a big part of our budget, strategic planning, traffic, everything we do. So we have to, and it's part of that traffic thing too, is, how do we manage economic development? Is a huge key when we've never had to manage economic development. Who's the expert in the room for economic development? Those type of things. We have to drive that a little bit as well.
What also happens too is when you don't have you just take any small business and they become part of the community. They spend their money here, and it just snowballs. And then they're the ones that sponsor the little league teams. They're the ones that advertise in the local paper. They're keeping that economic money flowing back and forth in our community. And we need to get that back, because it's once you lose that, and you have less kids in the beach school. It's just a spiraling effect. So, I mean, we need to be really laser focused on doing everything we can to encourage small businesses to get back on the island.
Yeah, and just another part to the leakage, we need to identify our mosaic, which tells us what is being purchased, what people are leaving to go buy. We mentioned barber, we mentioned dentist, those are givens. Doctors, those are given, but what else? What else are they buying? We have a couple of boat dealerships here. Are they buying that many boats? I don't know. But there's a lot that will go into this as we get a little closer to the surface that all plays into the big picture.
And I think you're understanding how or maybe you're starting to understand how it's important. To Scott's point, yes, the businesses are very important, but if you don't have the residents here when those tourists leave, those businesses don't make it. So you have to have the people that actually put the money into the small businesses outside the 3 or 4 months that they're here to be able to support the small businesses that then support the Little League and support everything else. So the more you talk about one, it makes you think about how important the other three are, because one doesn't make it without the other. And it's just that simple.
And so as you go into visioning in the next exercise, you need to remember all these. You guys are all agreeing to this. You're agreeing to that sense of community. You're agreeing to that inclusive and welcoming vibe. You're saying, hey, we have to have this balance that it's really, to me, it's a circle, right? That if you're a resident and you want to come, or you're a tourist, that you have the opportunity to go to any one of those other legs. So I'm hearing you all say, if there is consensus that you value these for Fort Myers Beach, And if you value those, then as we get into the next exercise, you need to think about that when you begin to talk about your vision. Right? Are we
No,
are we in
I think you're
agreement
on
that this is okay? So are there other things, or I think this is solid. It's a good starting point.
And I think to the vice mayor's point earlier, if you just look at that whiteboard right there, that encompasses the comp plan, essentially. It really does, because everything in there has been there since the comp plan was written. There's nothing new there that we're discussing. We're just rehashing and how we can tweak things to make it fit better within what the initial vision was.
But the comp plan only addresses certain things.
Certainly. I get
So
that,
the
but
strategic plan is a much broader, much higher level. The comp plan is only one piece of it.
It's one tool.
I would be shocked if this wasn't in line with the comp plan. It should be
Fair
in
enough.
line with the comp plan,
Right.
right? Because they've probably already vetted and done a lot of stuff and you should have the same answers. But the strategic plan is going to be much greater than just that one piece.
Certainly.
But they should complement one another. Absolutely. All right, let's take a 5-minute break, if that's okay. Coffee, water, whatever you need, and we'll come back and I will set up for the next activity.
All right. We'll
Sound
break at 10:01, come back at 10:06. Angela, take it away.
Wonderful. Don't get too comfortable in your seats because next is a group activity.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to, we're going to break you up, a group of 3 and a group of 2. Don't laugh because it's not working. Okay. Beginning to develop the vision. You're going to work in groups, and this is what you're going to address. You're going to pretend that you write for a newspaper or a blog or a column, and it's the year 2034, and you've been asked to write a guest column about the town's accomplishments over the past 10 years and what it's like to live here now. What would you write?
Let's see, I could be dead.
Okay,
Just saying.
you guys are going to write it.
Aaron Woodson was a
So you're going to write it, and then we're going to discuss it.
Best counsel.
You have to have your thinking cap on. Are you ready?
Get set.
Okay.
Right.
Just break up into 2 and 3. Not everybody at once. I mean, I know y'all are so excited. I can see. Come on, let's go. We need one group here of 3 and one group here of 2.
My last name starts with a K and ends with a K.
Okay.
Let's go. And somebody needs to
Nancy,
write
is
on the
this
flip
something that we
chart.
can Technically do.
Is that called
We're gonna-
crock?
Well, well, as long as we,
Bit of a training and it's not
Yeah.
gonna come specific.
Okay,
to you,
just
but
wanna
thank
make
you for
sure.
Going there.
I just
Yeah.
wanna make sure.
and when you report out, you won't be reporting out from here. You'll be going back to the dais to report.
Okay,
So, yeah. I
Yeah, just no foreseeable subjects. Right, yeah. This is a newspaper. The mayor's on the phone.
All right.
so
Okay,
it's-
2 and 3.
I was thinking it's-
Doesn't matter.
We'll hold down the table for you.
Okay.
You don't want me to be the corresponding secretary.
Yeah, so if somebody can just kind of,
Jan, you got good?
you can either write it on a pad
I don't,
or you
but I
can
can-
write it on the flip chart. I
What side you
prefer the
going with
flip
there,
chart,
John?
but,
Go over here.
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Got the chair.
Well, you can write it.
You shift from the town
The
council.
thing is, I think when they do the-
Move these out of the way.
That's what they're doing,
Oh,
right?
sorry.
Have very good handwriting. We'll give it a run.
Well, and if we had little wireless mics, we could technically put a mic on them.
You could put a mic down there.
We're watching them. They're not doing any. Yeah, these are all the stuff there.
Are we supposed to do bullet points or do you want like an actual?
I want you to write, I don't write an article.
Oh, good lord.
Dateline.
Right, these people can sit up here if they want to.
Fort Myers impersonation. No,
No points off for spelling
or grammar.
or grammar. We don't worry about that.
Well, yeah, do this first. I think. Yeah.
So,
do one of those.
So used to working with my fingers. I get on this, I'm like.
It's tough, and then when you're trying to manipulate the documents around.
Mhm.
What is your biggest stressor?
No, just getting the 6th going.
and you guys have 20 minutes for this.
Good word. No, exclusive, and we're
This is something we just talked about.
It's okay.
Not being judgmental, just observation.
If you look back at the Bill of Rights and oh, chicken scratch, agreed.
What's that smell like, Dan?
I was gonna draw a mustache.
Those are some amazing markers.
Mustache, you would
You ever see what happens when you take cursive out of the school system? It's terrible.
You guys take your time. They just got done early. You have, okay, okay.
Or you write bigger? Something like that.
I didn't know we were technically on a break, but you ready, Jacob? All right, let's try this again.
Okay,
I don't have my gavel.
it's
One
okay.
time I could've
No
used it.
worries.
Do you want it?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so who is the spokesperson? Who is at this table and who's the spokesperson? Okay. Can you please read your article? But before you do, quick question. Did you guys take these into consideration?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
let's see. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Thank you. Well, there we go. Thank you.
Further.
Back it up to Cleveland.
All right. So the past 10 years have proven to be the dedicated outcome of planning, resiliency, development and compromise. Stronger buildings, cleaner water, improved transportation and waterways. The town is in excellent financial shape, and we have truly discovered the fountain of youth. Thankful for our continued commitment to music, arts, history, culture, and the environment.
Sounds like an article.
I know, it's supposed to be an article.
Definitely not right.
This does not need to be
I can't
publicly
read it, so
visible.
he's got to.
It's certainly not as articulate as our colleagues here. The recovery post-Ian, these past 10 years began with a philosophy that stressed the town works for the people. Getting folks back into their homes and getting key essential services open ASAP was a priority. Policy decisions were made that institutionalized resiliency, better communication, improved permitting, and responsive governing. All this was accomplished while preserving the unique vibe of the town. The town is now better prepared for the next potential disaster. At the same time, we retained the eclectic nature of our architecture, parks, beaches, and overall quality of life. The town as a whole, forced with enormous challenges of red tide, COVID, and Ian, came together at a time of great turmoil and rose to the challenge of rebuilding our great island and way of life.
Glad you could read it.
Very good, both of them. Yes.
You didn't find the fountain of youth, though.
No, not even
I don't
close.
think we're going to be sending our resume to
And the
the
Packers won 5 Super Bowls.
Did they?
Yeah, he tried to get that on there, and I said no.
Vikings still none.
That's okay.
Okay. Is there any crossover?
Sure.
A lot of crossover.
Where is it?
I can't read that. I even have new context.
Well, it was resiliency came in through that. It was
Compromise,
compromise. It was
working together.
I think essential services just worded a little differently.
Working, as Scott said, working together. Yep.
working together.
Environment.
I think that eclectic and the vibe kind of goes in. You broke it down more granular than we kept it more of a, but I think they're all. Was that the wrong word? Sorry,
No.
Frankie. You're the scholar.
I am not.
You did.
I'm not looking at him.
Well, we got the economic development in there with the financial stronger commitment to environment. I think you guys had that one in there too, didn't you? Yeah. Resiliency, quality of life. That
We
goes
didn't
along
touch
with
on
the,
the fountain of youth.
well, that's the fountain of youth, quality of life. That could be.
Hmm.
Use your imagination.
That could be a lot of things.
I know.
Okay. What are they not saying?
We had zero discord. We had zero disagreements. We had zero.
When you think of a vision, what is a vision?
It's what you aspire to.
It's a
No, a vision is
desired,
what you aspire to.
desired future state.
Hmm.
So if you were writing an article and it was 2034, what does that desired future state look like?
We're in a better place.
it's staying true to who we are, what made us who we are.
Okay.
At least that's what I see in that. But it ties into the resiliency to, stronger, obviously, buildings and
So a great example of a future state is right here. The town is in excellent financial shape. That's a desired future state. So when you begin to talk about essential services, resiliency, you're still down a little bit, but we need to get up here. So what's that desired future state? Where do you want to go? Where do you see going? You talked about a little bit over here and the treasures of the things that you like, but now it's about taking it up a notch. So it's not just about preserving the vibe, it's that vision, right? If you had a crystal ball and
Like
you could
our tram that could run across the
well, we don't want to be
island and-
specific. Like, so let me give you an example. Based on what I heard over here, I think your desired future state would be that you are the premier, and I'm just throwing this out, premier destination where you can come as a tourist, become a resident, and live forever.
And see, that's where I find this challenging because that goes without saying. I think that everybody believes that. So you're just essentially asking us to put it down on a piece of paper.
No.
But I don't think that anybody doesn't think that way or
That's how
doesn't.
we all got here.
That's what-
You may think that way,
that's good.
but you're elected officials.
Well, I think we represent the town pretty well.
Yeah.
I think the reason we became elected officials is because we believe that way
Mhm.
and we wanted to strive to keep ourselves that way. So I guess that's why. To me, it sounds like you're asking us to write down the obvious. I guess let's put it that way.
But how is that obvious? Because I think you had a little bit, when we talked about this and sustainability, we talked about those are the things you love and that's why you're here. But what's that future state? What's the desired future state? Is it that you have the right people, resources, financials in place to sustain these things? Is that the desired future state?
Well, again, to me, and I'm not trying to be argumentative.
No,
trust me,
no,
but
don't be.
To me, I think that's common sense. I think we certainly don't want to be not financially stable.
Right.
We certainly don't want the water to turn to mud and nobody ever to come visit. We don't certainly want the beach school to go away. So to me, it sounds like you're asking us to state the obvious. And the vision is exactly in what you're saying. We want to be financially stable. We want to make sure we have clean water that people and beaches that people come back to. We want to make sure that we have that good balance between residents, seasonal residents, the four things that we described up there. I mean, those are the key values that got us to where we're at. And we certainly want to make sure those are there into the future. I guess I'm trying to figure out what outside of the obvious, those few obvious
Right.
things, what you're
So are you
going
saying
for.
what we don't have there is in 10 years, we want to be the place in Southwest Florida or the nation where you can not only
Live, work, and
come come visit, but turn in eventually live, work and play. And it's safe. It's
Inclusive,
more
welcoming.
green, inclusive.
Mhm.
I'd like to see,
That's what the TDC says.
yeah,
Live,
I
work,
mean,
and play.
you want to be, live, work and play, but in a safe environment, in a clean environment
Yes.
with multiple opportunities.
Yes. Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
So in a sense, it's stating the obvious, but it's really not because it's reframing what you're doing. Because in your mind, you're already doing some of these things.
Mm.
But remember, your vision, everything is going to be built based on that vision. And so we have to articulate it in a way that makes sense, not just to you, but to the community, to the businesses you want to come in, that you want to rebuild, all of those things, and not be so far down in the actual tasks and work plan, but really who you want to be in 10 years. Do you want to be that premier community that does that?
Yeah. we
What's the unique vibe besides inclusive and welcoming? Is it that you can come and, you have this sustainable
Well,
opportunity?
I think a lot of it, which we haven't really articulated yet, but I think everybody, as Dan says, just it's just who we are. I mean, we want to be that place it's not Orlando with nothing against Orlando with 5 big boxes, and we want to be that place with boutique hotels, funky bars, cool wine bars, something different with a Southwest Florida flavor.
Welcome.
That's unique, that's welcoming.
Yeah. No, you're right. Unique.
Yeah, we just
Funky.
don't want to be, the thing about what's cool here is you can go to any major city in the United States outside of New Orleans and, maybe New York, and every town's the same. I mean, they've got all the same, big box stores, big box hotels. It's antiseptic. We want our own, we want to be like Key West, but not Key West. We want to be unique and different. People are like, hey, I want to go down to Fort Myers Beach. It's a cool place. And what makes it cool is it's not like everywhere else, I guess.
I think of, it's kind of like Key West, Sanibel, parts of Orlando, parts of, you could put that into a bowl and mix it all up. And that pretty much describes Fort Myers Beach. You've got a little bit of Key West. You do have a little bit of
The
Sanibel.
eclectic mix.
You do have a little bit of not necessarily, or maybe use Clearwater or
Mhm.
maybe use something else that, there's always something here for someone to do.
Yeah.
No matter what you want to do, whether it's kayaking, whether it's, to Jim's point, sitting at a bar, having dinner or having a drink and you don't know who you're talking to, whether it's fishing, whether it's just walking or biking on the beach. I mean, there's something really for everyone to do. Once we get, you can have the kids come to the pool. So that it to me, that is what Fort Myers Beach is. It's the ability that all different walks of life can come here and not just do one specific thing, but they have many different things that they can do.
It encompasses the whole state of Florida. If you think about the Panhandle, a lot of fishing up there, a lot of shrimp boats, things like that. You have that here. You got the tourism, you got the environmental, ecological part of it. You got the back bay, the front bay. And then you also got a diverse population that came from basically the Midwest, but the country. I mean, you do. A lot of cities in Florida do, but there are a lot of bigger cities in Florida that have that. This is a small city that has that big city feel, if you will. That has that diversity, that dynamic that is a little different here than other places that I've lived. And I've lived in, and interviewed in other parts of the state, but it's this part has Florida.
Fort Myers
We
Beach.
have Florida.
No. Oh, down there. Sorry.
And now I think more than ever since I've been around, at least, we're starting to bring in things. We've always had kind of arts, but now we're bringing in the music part of it. We started, bringing in the things that you would expect to find in a small town, Florida town, small little people playing on a stage somewhere or, things of that nature, I think are part of things that we maybe didn't have a whole lot of in the past. We had some, but it's now just expanded. It's, getting people outside, getting people outdoors and enjoying the outside is really kind of what we're all about.
I think, I know you don't want to get a specific, Angela, but what the mayor just said, I think kind of epitomizes sort of where I think we're headed. And I think it's good. We had a Bayside Park before, but the town never really partnered with the town. The town never really partnered with the businesses nearby. Now we've got this concert series. We partnered with the chamber, with the local businesses around the park, with the community. So we've got music that everyone can enjoy. You just didn't see that before. And I think that's a vibe everybody likes and supports, and the tourists can enjoy it. The residents can enjoy it. It helps business. Everybody wins. You look at a beautiful.
We counted 300 something people there last night at one time. I mean, it's the end of April.
But this didn't kind of happen before.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that I've always used these words, at least over as long as I've been involved in this. Again, Fort Myers Beach is very inclusive. Exclusivity is not something that is thrown. Even with the things that are coming in and whatever is going to be new, inclusiveness is what Fort Myers Beach is about. Everybody feels included or wants to be included into what's going on and the vibe and the future. And I think that's important.
So I think that I love this. So I'm trying to get you from the article, which is different than a vision statement, but I love where you're going in this sense of experience all of Florida and Fort Myers Beach. That is paints a picture.
Experience everything Florida has to offer.
There you go.
in Fort
See,
Myers
even
Beach.
better.
There it is. Yeah.
Hey, our new advertising campaign.
Nice jingle to it.
Trademark that.
Nicole?
Very,
Nicole, you got that?
Write that down.
very original jingle singer.
And again, obviously, there's a little more to it with the inclusive, the welcoming, and the vibe, but that paints a picture for me as an outsider. If I were to see a vision statement that had that, wow, okay, I get, when I think of Florida, I'm a Florida native. So, I think of all the different things you mentioned, right? I could have the cultural amenities. I could go fishing. I could go to the beach. I could be casual. There's all those different things of Florida that I think about that is a statement. That is a vision to me. Again, needs tweaking, but do you kind of see the difference? We can talk about resiliency. We can talk about those other things, but it's getting that kind of high level vision of what you want to do. All the things you mentioned, all these things here would fall under something like that. Yes? No?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Comments, thoughts? I'm very happy with where you got, by the way.
We did good.
You did good. Thoughts on it?
What's the next step?
Okay. Anything else before I go there?
No, I think you got it.
Okay. So I just want to talk, I'm going to show you some examples, but I just want to talk very briefly about this and then talking about next steps. I'm going to show you some examples of some of these that we've done because I always think a visual is easier for you to kind of understand. So again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we use a very different method, the participatory method. But I just want to share with you because you guys have been, again, such in survival mode, rightfully so, that it really takes both strategic planning and action planning, and it has to be a balance. That's why you see my little man in the mirror. He's in the middle. He's trying to balance. Because with strategic planning, it's really important that you're thinking in advance, right? That was that whole exercise that we just did is kind of forward thinking. Again, when you get to the next steps, it's about what needs to be done to accomplish the mission and vision. A strategic plan has to be internal and external. Remember at the beginning, I talked about the need for involving all the stakeholders and gathering data. Where action planning, and you heard from Andy around some of those projects, that status projects, that work plan that you're actually doing. It's usually very tactical, right? It's really concerned about internal, what needs to be done. You were talking earlier about you didn't even know where to look or what to do when he came on board and he was relying on you. Some of those action things that need to happen. And the action steps should align with the resources. So just remember as you embark on this process that these are very distinct. Action planning and strategic planning are very distinct. They have different methods for reporting. Their goals are going to be somewhat different. And they need to be revised at different rates. So I think we already talked about this a little bit, but I feel it's really important that you understand the differences and the similarities and how they complement one another. So I always like this visual on the bottom right, because when you guys are really right now, you are on the right, the bottom right, that operational planning, right? You have a ladder, you are just building from the ground up. That's the reality. And so the strategic planning is taking that vision, which we started with, and then trying to, the last piece of it is really that strategy piece. And so, you know, you think of strategic planning, it's long term. It usually lasts longer. While you as leaders are going to set the tone and the direction, the staff is going to be critical to the implementation of the strategic plan. And that is why it is important to get their input early on in the process. So I just wanted to share these with you. I just think it's important for that frame of reference because when you are in that bottom right corner and you're on a ladder and you're just trying to rebuild, it's sometimes very hard to step back and to do what you did today. So I think it's really good. I think you've started a good conversation. So I want to talk to you about next steps. So he is going to pull up. I want to show you some examples before we get to that. Can you pull up the, yeah. So I feel like a visual is always better. So I just want to kind of share with you. So this is one, oh, actually, can you do Tarpon Springs, please? The other one. So we completed City of Tarpon Springs. We're still in their implementation plan, but I just kind of want to show you the process that we've used. So if you could go to the actual document, it should be the top right document. I think you already down. Yeah, here we go. So just, do I have access? Oh, I do. Okay. So I just want to show you, this is, we used a similar process with them. This is just, you don't need to, this is all. So this talks about, this is what I wanted to show you. Is there any way to pull this up? Just blow it up a little, make it bigger. Thanks. Oh. So they can see. Okay. So as you can see in the middle here, the process involves setting expectations, doing kind of a kickoff and expectations, really defining those vision, mission, core values, and guiding principles. We think of core values and guiding principles as those non-negotiable behaviors. That is how you want to interact with each other, with your staff, with the community, and there's a process for that. But again, even though you started today, you really need the input of all the stakeholders. Again, doing a lot of data collection, doing some community engagement. That's really important to our process that we propose to you. Employee engagement, I already mentioned. And then there is kind of developing those goals and objectives. And then the kind of the last piece is the implementation plan and the action steps needed to accomplish it. So you can see for Tarpon Springs, we went through a lot to get through this process. And what they ended up coming out with are these 6 strategic theme areas. So I'm just going to walk you through. So this was kind of the different process we used. Obviously, stakeholder interviews were conducted, and you can see that's just kind of a word map of what we heard a lot from them. We did a resident survey. We had themes come out of that. We did an employee feedback survey. We did a focus group, but I want to get down to, if you can scroll down a little bit. We had some newly elected officials, so we also did a workshop with them. Community forum. We had a discussion with the community twice. I just want to get down to leadership forum one. Excuse me, I'm sorry. This is something else that we do with St. Can you scroll up so they can see it? No, other way. Sorry. So this is something else that we like to do. It just kind of creates a visual for the community as well. And it really just kind of shares what we've come up with in terms of a mission and vision statement. And obviously, if you know Tarpon Springs, the sponge docks and the Greek culture have a huge influence there. But you can see, like, under quality of life, their 2 big things were protecting their water quality and multimodal transportation, which I heard from you guys as well. But again, this is something that kind of creates that visual for them. I just want to get to the goals. Can you scroll up for me? I'm sorry. No, other way. I keep saying up. Oh, so you can see guiding principles. And then, yeah, so here we go. So strategic goals. So you can see, like, goal 1, the quality of life. So this is where you want to get to in the next steps of the process, is having all of these goals and then the objectives that fall underneath of them. You want to minimize it a little. And then I'll also show you, we did Cape Corals as well. So if you want to pull up Cape Coral, and I think I can click through. I think you can do it double paged, but you can see, yep, just slide up for me. There we go. Yeah, so here were their goals, their strategic theme areas, city services and amenities. You can read through those. And then, they were very, whoever your communications person is, they were very, they wanted to use waypoints instead of goals. So they were trying to be creative. So yeah. So I just wanted to share that with you because the process and the next steps is kind of getting together what that would look like, what is appropriate for you in terms of your community, and then beginning. That's really it. But this is kind of the final document. And again, yeah. So, okay. Questions about that? I just think it's important that you kind of saw that. Does it make sense?
So Angela, just can you give us some practical examples of how this plan has changed Tarpon Springs? Do they use it? I mean, do they they
Yes.
literally, are you just saying that or do they
Nope.
actually use it?
If you
for-
actually, so one of the things that we do is in the implementation phase with Tarpon, we work with them to determine the best way to report out, as we were talking earlier. So there are some software tools that we recommend. There's 2 or 3 that we would recommend that the town would use. And Tarpon Springs is using them. And so it allows for them to embed it into their culture and report out at meetings. We work with them. I think we're just finishing up 1 year of implementation. I think we have 1 more. So every quarter we work with them in terms of reporting out, but it is now embedded in their culture. So that's what I was saying earlier. If they have an agenda item on their agenda, it references what goal it is referencing. And there are quarterly status updates. And so yeah, it's a great example. They used it for budgeting. We also are working with this, Wellington, the village of Wellington in South Florida, and Dunedin, city of Dunedin, and they're doing it as well. So
I'm trying just for the viewer who may be watching, just
Sure.
trying to give them a better sense of what the practical impact of this is. I know it's referenced throughout these governmental
Sure.
processes. What's the practical impact of it?
I think the practicality is that it is an opportunity. I think somebody mentioned the train, right? And so the train is moving and you have to have a clear vision and you're all behind it. And so it becomes challenging when you're in survival mode or you don't have a plan. So, right, you're just responding and reacting instead of saying, well, we need to plan. And so the practicality is in government, it's going to take a little while to do things. It doesn't happen overnight, as we all know. And so I think it is a document that allows you as elected officials and the community to get behind initiatives and the vision for where they want to be. And it's used in day-to-day operations.
And I asked that very genuinely because I think Fort Myers Beach is blessed in a unique way right now, and that I think that you've got a legislative body here who has a unity of purpose. And you see a lot of dysfunctional councils who may not have gone through this kind of adversity.
Correct.
And there's no common, there's no unity of purpose.
Mhm.
And there's sometimes a breakdown in civility, et cetera. We don't have any of those issues, fortunately.
Mhm.
So we know where, we know where we want to go. So I just think it's a unique situation where we have, and I think even in conjunction with our advisory committees or LPA, et cetera, I think everybody's kind of roughly on the same page. So we have this inherent sense of where we're going. So I guess really in essence, what we're doing is codifying it on paper.
Well, I think you have a sense of where you're going, but again, I think it's the culture shift. So you may know where you want to go, but it's also the how you get there. And I think the how you get there is the most critical point. And remember, you can't do everything. That's the other thing about the process we use. You may come up with 5 strategic goals. And under those goals, you may have 5 objectives for each goal. You can't do all 25 things. It's not real. You're going to have to prioritize. That's the reality. And so you as leaders will set that. You will say, okay, these right now are the top 5 or top 7 that we're going to focus on. Remember, a lot of what you're going to wanting to accomplish will also be dependent upon other things. There are probably some internal things that you have control over, but there are some external things that you don't.
Mhm. So could I just get in the weeds for 1 second?
Sure.
When you talk about community involvement, community input, surveys, all that
Mhm.
kind of thing. So we're actually talking about open forum community meetings at some point, right?
That
We're
is
talking
correct.
about a survey that would go out on the town website. Is that separate? Is it residents? Is it businesses? Is it all lumped into one? Do business owners have a separate survey, or how does that all work?
So I would say how we like to do it is we like to create that scope of work based on the needs of your community. Some communities, we have done community forums only with a resident survey. We did the town of Bel Air, and they don't do a lot of online stuff. They're not very internet savvy. So we actually had to do paper surveys. So we have a spectrum of what we can do. Traditionally, we like to do online resident surveys that goes out to everyone. However, we will accommodate whatever those needs may be. We also conduct an employee survey and an employee focus group, and then also community forums. In addition to all that, we usually start with key stakeholder interviews. And in those key stakeholder interviews, usually you would have businesses, anybody from boards and committees. So there's kind of like 5 or 6 kind of key groups that we feel that are really important. And we would ask you to identify those individuals, and then we would conduct key stakeholder interviews. So if you wanted a forum for businesses, which I would assume you would probably want based on kind of what's going on here, then we would absolutely do that.
So time frame on that whole process. I mean, ideally the time frame, if
Sure.
we don't get bogged down in any certain area, what is that time frame before we can get all of this input together and head to the final results?
So I would say, so take out the implementation phase, because by that point, that usually takes a year, the implementation phase, but you already have the plan, right? And so I would say we traditionally about 9 months to 10 months, if there's no big hiccups, 12 months maximum. But that's usually what it takes to kind of get to where you have a document like you just saw.
And then how does it work? You said quarterly. You work with staff quarterly to review and
Yeah, so
update it.
we would actually work with Andy and his team and figure out like what's best for them. I can tell you when we did City of Newberry, which I don't know if you know where that is, it's right outside of Gainesville. When we did theirs, they're like, listen, we're not sophisticated. They were just honest. And so they're like, we don't really want to use a software. We just want to use Excel right now. And so we work with them to figure out what was best for them internally. And then we worked with their city manager to figure out how to, like, was he doing monthly meetings with his department leaders? And if so, that became part of the department leader meetings that the city manager had. So yeah, so we work with the city manager, town manager, village manager to figure out what works best and what process they already have in place to do that. And then they would report to you on a quarterly basis. So officially report. So.
Yeah, you mentioned Dunedin. To me, Dunedin is of close similarity to the town of Fort Myers Beach. Without the
Yes.
beaches and the water.
Yep.
I mean, it's a very unique, eclectic,
Oh,
small
yes, I
town that's
know.
very community focused. And it's, to me, when you said that, that reminds me a lot of Fort Myers
Yeah.
Beach.
Yes, and ironically, you're a little different, but yes, inclusive, welcoming. We heard the same thing from them. We're actually in the kind of end stages of theirs. We don't have the final report yet. They're still working on their objectives, but I would say in the next probably 60 to 90 days, their final report will be ready. So we're working through it with them. And we used the process. We did community forums, we did all the employee stuff, the stakeholder interviews, we did all of that. So
Yeah, I think those are going to be key in
mhm,
involving the community and
mhm.
the stakeholders, I guess, if you will. We're just 5 people that are the voice of the bigger group. So I think I like the fact that they're involved.
Yeah,
So I don't think they were involved much with the last
right.
go around of the strategic plan, but with what we're faced with now, it certainly is very important to have their input.
Absolutely.
You know, and as we mentioned, you've already got your roadmap. This is what we're going to be building off of. So it's not reinventing the wheel.
Correct.
Yeah, and I asked you that
Speeds the
beforehand.
process.
Is this, we've got this document. It's
Yep.
just it's our vision and mission and all that kind of stuff in here. And just
Oops.
perusing through it, it's a lot of things that are just not,
Correct.
Correct.
they're not even viable.
And I think
or-
that's where you just hit on, the public didn't have a lot of input because if you look at that, it's like, what, it didn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't make a lot of rhyme and reason. Well, it does to me and you guys looking at it, but yeah, public input is so key to this process.
Well, and it also goes back to that document I think is very internal.
Mhm.
Remember I had this up here. And so that's really action where
Right.
strategy is internal and external. So any other comments or thoughts before we move on to the next?
Nope, move on.
Okay, perfect. So I always like to put on the agenda just an opportunity for you guys, if there's any open discussion, anything we haven't covered, any projects or anything that just may impact this process. It's just really your opportunity to, if you'd like to make a comment or whatever.
Well, we'll just go, I think we've kind of all thrown out our ideas and comments as we've been going, but John, you have anything else for Andrew?
No, I don't think I do at this time.
Vice
I'm
Mayor?
good for now. Thank you.
Council Woodson?
No, I'm good for now.
Council Safford?
I'm good too.
Okay,
We got it.
you guys are an easy bunch.
That's just a rumor.
Yes, yes.
Not cheap.
Inexpensive.
Yeah, right.
Inexpensive.
And then I know that we wanted to open it
Yep,
up for
I was just
public
gonna-
comment. So I will let you take that over.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that sound good?
Thank you.
Okay.
So we'll open it up for public comment. If there's anyone here that would like to speak in public comment, please come on up.
I wrote vision.
Yeah.
Can I read it?
Sure. You got 3 minutes to say whatever you'd like.
It's just it's real short. It has been 10
Make
years
sure you
since,
identify yourself, please, for the record.
sorry, my name is Christy Thornton. I'm a resident of Fort Myers Beach. It has been 10 years since our quaint little beach town was devastated in a cataclysmic Hurricane Ian. Wow, have we come a long way. This historic downtown area of Fort Myers Beach is the best feature of the entire island. The town constructed a fantastic roundabout with a beautiful marble fountain reminiscent of the Trevi Fountain in Italy, which some say was not made by the hands of man, just like our remodeled beach. The old Fort Myers Bridge is now for pedestrian, bike, and EV use only because the entire historic downtown is blocked off to cars by bollards. Everyone enjoys the walkability of the historic downtown, which is lined with all of the best shops, restaurants, and bars. Sure, we developed the island north and south of the historic downtown, but we also built a north and south end bridge. Traffic on Fort Myers Beach is a thing of the past. We built a multi-use path on the berm along the beach, and now it just doesn't make sense to drive a car, so most don't. 90% of the traffic on Fort Myers Beach are buses and Uber-esque transport services because of the robust off-island parking structures available at every bridgehead. Fort Myers Beach is the best place to live and work because all businesses receive a 10% property tax discount if they improve and keep up with their immediate property line shared with the city and county. And I ran out of time. That was the end.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, we'll close public.
one more.
Oh, one more? Oh, sorry.
I'm stuck behind.
It didn't, yeah, you're behind. I couldn't see you.
Good morning. My name's Matthew Thornton. Mayor, last time I was at a meeting with council members and yourself, you asked me if I wanted to come up and speak. I told you at that time, I said, no, I didn't, but I will. So here I am, and I will. I am currently running for county commissioner for District 3 here in Lee County. We are residents of Fort Myers Beach. We actually don't live on the island itself. We live just off the island. We've been coming to the city council meetings for months now, and we've been going to the commissioners' meetings. My reason for doing this is dualfold. Number one was to hear you personally say that you didn't think that my wife's idea and plans would work. And I sense the issue, and that is that your communication with the commissioners is limited at best. My plan is to not only be here to listen to the beach communities, not only just Fort Myers Beach, but Estero and Bonita Springs also. I grew up here in Florida. I grew up on an island, Amelia Island to be exact. I've watched bad decisions made. I've seen islands taken away from their residents and turned into just big, gigantic hotels. I can give you several examples. I think that the strategic planning for this community is dire. I think that keeping this a small town feel and making sure families and residents are here is dire. And I think communication with not only the county on a regular basis, but the state of Florida is also very dire in this case. I wish you all well with this. I'm very excited. I'm also very excited to be running. So anything that I can do in the meantime over the next couple of months, I'll be more than happy to do. I encourage you to visit, Thornton 4 Lee. That's the number 4 at any time. And send me an email if you have any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Next steps.
So we already talked a little bit. Oh, my quote's not up there. My quote's not up there. Oh, it's okay. I had a quote I wanted to leave you with, but for some reason it didn't. It's not up there. So next steps would be, we will obviously write a report about today and kind of what we came up with. And then we will also kind of provide what we anticipate based on discussions, kind of what that scope of work would look like. And we will have those conversations with Andy and Jason to kind of move forward if this is, this is the direction we want to go. I think that, yeah, I think you're in a really good place in terms of you have an opportunity with new leadership meaning he's only been here a year. And so, yeah, so those are really the next steps. I wanted to leave you with a really great quote, but I don't see it.
Can you pull it up on your phone?
Maybe.
I know, you guys-
I always like to end on like a positive note.
I hope it's not one of those,
It
you
was,
really
like,
got to see this movie and then it
perfect.
just.
Yeah, right. And then he can't remember the name.
Really raised
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah. Go
You
ahead.
sure
Come.
can.
So, one of the reasons I was asking about timing is I know this takes a long time to do it right. And we're
Mhm.
basically talking 9 to 12 months. But I think if we could have, at some point, we don't have to do it right now, but
Oh,
at
here it
some
is.
point, maybe in our next M&P meeting, what are the 5 maybe strategic goals or 5 priorities that we have in this next year to get done while we're in the process of doing the strategic planning? What are some of these short-term action 5 priorities that we
Yes.
can be moving forward with?
And I would highly recommend that. And I don't think you call them goals.
No,
That is why,
priorities.
yeah, that's why I had current project status update on there. And so it would really be you guys working with Andy and figuring out, okay, these are kind of those action items that we're going to focus on over the next year, not goals. Because I don't think that you're ready for that yet. But you do need to know what you're going to work on. And so I know he alluded to a couple of items, but I would highly recommend that you come up with whatever 5, 7 action items that you're going to do for the next year. And that's what you focus on. You guys agree to it while you're going through the process. So yes.
So can we agree that we maybe put that on our next M&P? agenda
I
to
think that's
discuss?
a good idea.
Yes.
Okay, so I found my quote. So Robert, I don't know if you know who Robert Jordan is, but he's a writer. Have you ever The Wheel of Time? Probably not. He's anyway. So I just thought that there was this quote was very appropriate based on your current situation. So the oak fought the wind and was broken. The willow bent when it must and survived.
Mhm.
Thought it was very profound for where you guys have come and what you're working on. So kudos to you. Thank you for time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Counselor King,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.